What is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another episode of The Kingdom Says. I am your host, as always, Garrett Williams. Tonight, I am joined by just one of my usual co-hosts tonight. We've got Mr. Thomas Pike, Arrowhead Tom himself. How are we doing tonight, Tom?
Hey, I am good for a Monday where it feels like a lot of things have just kind of gone off course. We're here. We've made it. We're going to talk draft. I'm excited for it. In fact, while you're talking, I was scrolling through things and reading. So we'll see how focused I can stay and not end up watching some tape in the middle of this recording. I will do my best, but I'm in a good mood. I'm ready to talk draft. And as always, we appreciate everybody tuning in. We know off-season scheduling and stuff gets a little more wonky, a little less consistent, but hey, that's a good reason to turn your notifications on, whether it's on YouTube, your Spotify, or your whatever listening platform you're on. Make sure you're following us so you get that notification, especially during the off-season, because you don't want to be late listening to these episodes, right? You want to hear them as they're coming out. Make sure they you get them. I know we've got some other big ones coming up, especially we are tomorrow. Well, when this drops, I assume we are officially in draft month. So
it is, yeah.
We are recording this March 31st. The draft is in April. We're less than a month away. We're rocking and rolling, folks. Make sure you're following and have your notifications turned on. There's the plug. We'll get it out of the way early.
Nailed it. That was it's like it's like he's done this before. Great month coming up of April. Obviously my birthday month, the draft month. There's a lot of good stuff coming up in April. So just us two tonight. No Kyle or Randy, unfortunately. Busy, conflicting schedules, like Tom mentioned. Gets the best of us this time of year, but we're gonna power through. We're gonna give you guys a little quick episode here today, talking some draft prospects. We're gonna be doing a little bit of positional rankings, kind of going through some of the bigger positions that especially the Chiefs will probably be looking at, and in general, just that will be a little more interesting positions to talk about this draft, because it's not the greatest of drafts, as we'll kind of allude to as we break down some of these positional rankings. Definitely the draft this year weaker than it's been in the past few years. What's the reason for that? I mean, is it I think it's the last kind of effects of COVID that are still kind of hitting NIL money. I think is always a big factor. But it's always just kind of weird because we had a pretty decent draft last year, and I think next year's draft will be pretty solid with some of the prospects coming out there. So it's kind of weird. Just sometimes you get one of those little tweener years like this that it's just not as deep, at least in the positions that we want to see.
Yeah, there's definitely some talented players in the draft, and that's what we're going to talk a lot about this episode is kind of stacking this up and understanding that come draft day there may be some decisions that the Chiefs make that make you go, what? We don't need that, or what's kind of what the goal with a draft like this is to get good players, right? We're going to put positional value and even positional needs to the side as much as we can. The draft, so I went back and I was looking at some of the what are kind of considered some of the worst drafts in NFL history, and just kind of went back in the two most recent ones, which were 2009 and 2013. Draft classes that the Chiefs fans should be familiar with. In one of those classes, they took Eric Fisher, number 1 overall. And I believe the 2009 class was the year that they took Tyson Jackson, number 3 overall. So you can see a little bit of differences, but one of the things that just stood out was the players who performed were players who produced in college, and some of those more gambly prospects, a lot more misses than hits. And then the other thing that I like, and I need to go and maybe look at this a little closer. It looks like a little bit more biased. It's a young man's game, and some of those older prospects that got taken, not awesome.
Yeah.
So
it's tough. Yeah, it's tough.
I know I think there's a I think the defensive lineman from Toledo is one that I use as an example. Like, good player, I would pass on him. I just don't. I think he's probably at his ceiling, and I think he's going to be 25 his rookie year, and that's just tough, So, but yeah, let's get into it. I'll let you kind of steer the ship, and I'll fill because I could, once I get started, I'll roll through it all. So.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Let's kind of break down. We'll start from kind of the top of the offense. Obviously, quarterback is not a position that the Chiefs will have to worry about for many years, unless you're talking about maybe a backup in the late few rounds. Let's start at running back because running back is a very interesting position this draft. I
Mhm.
really want to dive into this a little bit here. How funny the narrative of running backs in the draft has been the past couple years, where nobody, basically after the Chiefs took Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round a couple years ago, that was like the nail in the coffin. Of people were like, nope, cannot take running backs in the first round anymore.
Mhm.
Absolutely cannot do it. 100% not a smart investment. And now this year, for many very
Mhm.
smart, intelligent people, they have two or three running backs potentially going in the first round. Definitely a super stacked running back class, which
Mhm.
is interesting because it's kind of like the cycle of the NFL, where you see all these high passing offenses with all these great wide receivers, and now it's starting to turn around and with all too high looks and stuff like that, getting back to the ground and pound game. So at the top of the running back draft this year, Tom, obviously it's headlined by Ashton Genty, who had just one of the most insane seasons in all of college
Mhm.
football history. You talk about producing in college. That's some good. That's a good trait right there. You know,
Yeah.
that's a good example right there. Behind him, there's a bunch of other really talented guys. Let's just dive into the running back position as a whole for me, Tom. And how do
Mhm.
you feel evaluating running backs and taking them in the first round, especially with this class?
Yeah. So I love a good running back. I love a good running game. As a Chiefs fan, like Larry Johnson, Priest Holmes, Jamal
Yeah,
Charles, even some of the years we didn't have the franchise guy, Kendrick West and Spencer Ware, and I
yeah.
mean, there is something about Kansas City and running backs that the long lineage, Christian Okoye, um,
Marcus
just
Allen.
all,
Yeah,
yeah, Marcus Allen,
yeah.
Joe Delaney, didn't get enough of him, but if you got to watch him play or if you've seen his highlights, man,
Dog.
um, yeah, just and it's just fun. A good running game is fun because it's like there's nothing that amps your team up more and defeats the other team like at
Yeah,
the same time as a
ran into the
consistent
ground.
running back. So yeah, Ashton Genty, he's going to be in that category with the few exceptions to that first round rule with guys. I think Bijan Robinson was one. I know Jameer Gibbs ended up going in the first round,
Yeah.
and that's paid off well for Detroit. But Detroit was kind of in a interesting spot. I think if Jameer Gibbs had gone to another team with a different roster, that pick might look a little bit more.
Well,
Uh,
Detroit also had DeAndre Swift. I don't know if he was a first rounder or if he snuck in
he
early
was a
second,
second
second
rounder.
round.
He was a
Yeah, he was
second rounder the same year as Clyde.
yeah,
Um, and then um, obviously Saquon went really early. I mean, I think
yeah,
you you know the top of the class, yeah, and then once you get to that second part, it's really that conversation of where's that fall off. Where the difference between Ashton Genty and Omarion Hampton, who's generally the number two. There's a
mhm,
lot of people talking about Hampton being closer to Genty. I I really like Hampton. I liked Hampton going into the year. I've watched a little bit more, and I have a few more concerns than I do about Genty. I have a comp for Genty. Like it would be a little old school, and this isn't necessarily about his size or just exclusively his height, but very Maurice Jones-Drew esque, like a little bit bulkier, but kind of a smaller, more compact frame.
yeah,
Isn't always going to hit the home run, but I'm so excited. I'm not. My camera's not out of focus. I'm actually just vibrating with excitement. So
yeah. I don't know what happened. Yeah, when you
I moved.
that's all
This
right.
is
You
not
know, yeah,
number four. We're gonna let's look up. No, all right. Well, bear with me, folks. It'll adjust eventually. So, Genty's going to be way out of range for the Chiefs. I don't think it's unrealistic that Hampton is there, but I think there's a lot of whispers that he's going to go higher than people think. Um, I like him. I I would be torn. It would depend on the rest of the class, but again, I feel like okay, I just my goal is to get good football players, depending on how that board
right.
falls. Hampton to me is athletic. He's strong. He's big. Um, Vision is the question. Vision and instincts are the question, right? Like good contact balance, physical. I think there's probably a very similar profile to what Pacheco offers in terms of like you kind of have to the play has to go develop as planned, and you're not going to have a lot of creativity. Um, when with Hampton. Like
Yeah,
his vision to kind of go find the second hole or find a different leverage may not be um, may not be the best. It might be his might actually be a little better than Pacheco's, but I wouldn't. It doesn't
he's pretty
wow
good.
me.
I mean, he's a pretty good player. Yeah, but
Yeah. Um, but I think again he is like very similar in terms of skill set, maybe with maybe some amped up, some extra juice. Um, Other guys, so Cam Scatterbo, I love Scatterbo.
yeah, super fun
Really
player.
so fun to watch. I would be surprised if the Chiefs took him. I just I and he's gotten a lot of love in the like I loved him as like a like oh yeah that's a guy on day three who's like gonna get you get you like amped up about being the backup or like the change of pace guy, right? And then people were kind of like talking about him as like, oh yeah, he's a really good this, he's a really good that. I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, I was a little surprised that he was that far down your board at least because I mean, I don't know, he was Arizona State's main offense. Like
oh
as a
yeah, he was
USC
the home
fan
run.
watching Arizona State in the Pac-12
Yeah.
and now whatever they're in now, but like
Hmm.
they ran a lot of that offense through Scatabo and I mean he was a dog. Like he seemed to just churn out production pretty solidly.
Hmm.
He can pass, he can catch out the backfield, which is really good. Like see, I mean, there's a lot of good traits. A lot of good traits. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. He might be still a little overvalued, but end of day two, I'd say if he was around, I would be intrigued.
Yeah, I think yeah, third round, great. Like I'd be okay with that too.
Yeah,
I think my concern with him is the overall athletic profile.
right.
Not just his 40 yard. I know people are going to look at that, but his 10 yard splits, his agilities were serviceable. And then if that's what you need, that's what you get. But like, I think with like Kareem Hunt on this roster,
He is very Cream Hunt esque, I think.
yeah, yes, that's very appropriate, very very similar. And again, maybe it's a situation where you bring him in and he learns from Kareem, and that's awesome. Somebody who I have, if just to pull like the curtain, I'm kind of scrolling through PFF's big board. Um, Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. I'm gonna talk about them both.
Yeah, the Ohio State
Um,
guys.
Both the Ohio State kids. It is really like a pick your poison kind of thing. Um, I lean more Henderson just because I think he fits more of what the Chiefs need or like they don't have.
Mm,
But I think both are solid running backs. I think Judkins is an interesting one who could end up being one of the better backs in this class. Like if you told me 3 years from now that it was Genty and Judkins were the best backs to come out of this class, I wouldn't be surprised out of it.
yeah,
Um, versus Henderson, I think is maybe a little bit more of that like, yeah, he's good, he's solid, he's in that kind of that 10 to 15 range of backs in the league. Um, I love Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. I know there's concerns about ball security and just production in general. Um, but I think I love his athleticism. Younger player. Um, he's more of that third down speed guy. But what I like most about him is that like he really does play with like he is willing to like step in and block and pass protection. And there's a couple other guys I'm going to talk about, but like
that's huge.
yeah, um, he gets there. Not the biggest guy, but like willing to do it. And he's I don't know. He's one him and who's the other kid that's Jordan Blue or Jaden Blue, excuse me, both
Yeah,
kind of those speedy guys who struggle with the ball security. Another guy that I'm gonna just throw this name out here because I feel like he's not like I don't. And maybe I need to look back at his combine stuff, but um, Caleb Johnson from Iowa. Um, I don't know how you can have a player who like he was like white hot before the combine. Um, had a tremendous year. I think has some of the best footwork. We talk about like the vision and stuff. Like I don't know. I think he has a lot of the things that you like. Um, 4.57 speed, 1.62 split. But he's a big kid, 6'1", 224. I don't know. Personally, I really liked him a lot. Again, if we're looking at, um, makes me think of like kind of DeMarco Murray vibes. A little
Okay.
throwback there.
Yeah.
I think he could be a three down back. I think he could be like really good at everything. Not necessarily the best at anything, but
Hmm.
if you want like a lot of times you're swinging for a home run, right, in the draft. But like if you just want to hit a solid double and just know that you're getting a good player, Caleb Johnson right there, day two. Um, I feel pretty good about that. Like that's um,
Yeah, day two is there's a lot of really interesting running backs that are going to be in that day two range that are going to be it's going to be hard to pass them by if you're the Chiefs. I feel like in some of those spots, like yeah, Dylan Sampson. You have the DJ Giddens out of Kansas State, who's pretty intriguing. We
mhm.
talked about Devin Neal on the last episode. I really like Devin Neal as a
Yep.
as a player.
I almost wish you could mash the two guys together,
Yeah,
Neil
let's
and
get the
Giddens, because
best
that
of
would be
both.
like, and I know that's blasphemy for those who partake in the Kansas State Kansas rivalry, but like they really are like very opposite-ish players.
Yeah,
I like Neil again a little bit just because I think he has some more upside, not upside, more reliability. I actually think Giddens has a little bit more upside, um, but I think Neil is more that reliable higher floor player. Um, RJ Harvey from UCF is a guy that I have seen some highlights, some cut ups of. I know there's some people who are big fans of him. I don't know if I don't know. I don't know if he's gonna get it. So these are some names you guys are probably are familiar with.
yeah, a lot of familiar
Um,
names. Trevor Etienne is another. I mean, big brother
yeah,
Travis Etienne in the NFL,
yeah,
another
and
similar
he's
mold.
probably more of a rotational guy, smaller
Yeah,
guy, not nearly. He doesn't have the elite speed. I'm gonna so there's um, Bashal Tutin was the guy who blew up the combine and is again getting some hype. I am gonna point to another guy, not far behind Bashal, who I think deserves more love than what he like has gotten from um, his time. I'm looking to find his 10-yard split right now. Um, Brashard Smith, SMU, uh, which got some connections there.
got some connections. We know
Yeah,
they
got a
like to
couple
go
connections.
fast.
So former wide receiver. When you think of um, 1,600 yards of total offense last year. He was a transfer from Miami, played wide receiver, switched to running back. Ironically, wears number one. If you want to go find give me if you guys missed what Jerick McKinnon brought to this office, that's what you were looking at right here.
Hmm.
Um, just very like they were use the term receiving back, but that doesn't mean he can't run with the ball. I love his instincts. I love his feel for space. Um, he's not a guy who you're going to hand the ball off 20 times, but those 5 to 10 touches you're going to give him, he's going to make really count. So again, I think that Jerick McKinnon role, very very helpful. Very
Yeah,
um, could fit that mold
could fit that mold pretty well. Yeah.
pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
this running back class it'll be an interesting one to see. It'll be interesting to see how the Chiefs view it, especially with all of the signings that they've had in the running back room already. Re-signing Kareem Hunt, signing Elijah Mitchell. You have Isaiah Pacheco coming back once again. So kind of a stacked running back room already. Now that there's not room to add more, but it'll be interesting to see how they kind of prioritize that as a position of need when they have a lot of a lot of options already on the roster. But for one, I would really like to see some young fire added to that running back room and just kick up the next gear, kick up the run game a little bit more, and probably lean towards a guy that's a little more creative, like you were saying. If
mhm.
last year's offensive line problems are even a little bit there next year, then yeah, you're gonna need a guy who can create, which is Kareem Hunt esque, and yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be interesting to see where they go. Let's keep on going down the list to wide receiver. Um, Obviously, last year the Chiefs took a wide receiver in the first round. They took Rashid Rice in the second round 2 years ago. They have a lot of good options at wide receiver, bringing back Hollywood
Yeah.
Brown. So it might not be the biggest position of need, although there are a lot of people who would still like to see more added. I know Luther Burden, a Mizzou kid, is in kind of that range, so that he might fall to the Chiefs.
Mhm.
This wide receiver class is interesting to me. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of heavy hitters. It's definitely not, like I kind of mentioned at the top of the show, you're not seeing as many of those like crazy
Mhm.
prospects that it seems like, we've seen the past few drafts where they're going top 5, top 10, and
Yeah.
making instant impacts on whatever team they're going to. It might not be as instant this year, but how do you kind of stack this wide receiver class? I know off the top who my favorite wide receiver of the class is, and so
Yeah.
I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are.
Yeah. So if you're going in this class and you need a like alpha number one wide receiver, like your primary target, I'm sorry. um, you have Tat McMillan, who I think even then has some big question marks. But then like the rest, and this is where I think I mentioned this in the last episode, where if you stack this receiver class, like if you mix this class and last year's class together, the conversation starts at who's going to be wide receiver four, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And that's so that goes down, So um, I almost wish I could pull up the year by year. Um, Maybe I can do that real quick, but um, I'm a big fan of Burden. I think he'll probably be gone. I think he's gonna end up going in the mid 20s, maybe the late teens. I think um, the other kid that is similar in that mold from Ohio State, Emeka Buka, who I have actually a little bit higher than Burden. Not by much. I just think Ibuka is just so consistent. Burden was a little bit tough this last year because of the like instability um, at
yeah.
quarterback play. But here we go. Here's 2024's. Um, yeah. So like if we're talking wide receiver two this year, right? Um, yeah, we're looking at a pretty big drop off. So like last year, wide receiver four was Brian Thomas. Wide receiver four this year is Matthew Golden. So
Well,
kind of
that might be who you ask. That might be important who you ask. I will
uh,
say this: Matthew Golden is my favorite receiver of the draft. I will just
okay.
put that out there
I
now.
was going to talk about Matthew Golden.
Yeah,
I think if you're looking to swing for a home run and you're looking for somebody be um, who might outperform his draft positioning, I think Golden has a good chance of being
yeah,
that.
I really like him as a product. Obviously, another Texas guy, same
Mhm.
as Xavier Worthy from last year. A lot different player, but I think he is a lot closer to a wide receiver one type guy. A guy
Mhm.
he seems to run a really good route tree. He seems to really
Yeah.
it has a lot of the athletic testing that I'd like to see. Really sure hands, which I liked. I don't know. I liked Matthew Golden a lot. I think he's probably my favorite of the first round option.
Well, he played with a level of confidence that I think some of the other receivers in this classic as a whole are.
Yeah, he has a little more of that alpha mentality to him. It seems
Yeah.
like he definitely embodies the kind of the role and the
Mhm.
the idea of being a wide receiver one. A lot of the other guys are kind of just like complementary pieces. It's interesting. Emeka Buka is interesting because he was going to come out in last year's draft, remember,
Mhm.
and he was reviewed as like a top 10, top 15 pick last year.
Yeah.
He decided to come back again. Maybe necessarily didn't up his draft stock any, but it's interesting to see
Mhm.
how even in this weaker wide receiver class now he's not even talked about as much.
I think he's one of those ones that's like we just know what he is, right? It's a
Yeah,
high floor kind of guy, and I think he's going to be very much that. Like he's not going to be your number one. He's going to be really really quality number two, but probably isn't a guy who you're going to ask to play on the outside a whole lot. Probably going to be a guy who you're moving around the hashes, moving in line, like not not a like not a guy you're going to ask to go line up outside every time, but he
yeah,
can
not
do
really
it.
like a true X type
Yeah.
receiver. Yeah,
Um, and I think Ibuka, like in the way Ohio State like develops receivers, and I think he's been that system. I think he can play any spot that you ask him to, but I think he's going to be his volume is going to come again working those middle of the fields, those end routes, those even some of those sideline things. But yeah, Matthew Golden is intriguing to me, not just because he ran really fast at the combine. I think that helps his
it does
case
help.
because
Yeah.
on tape I don't know if he has 4.29 speed on tape. At least I don't always see
No,
it.
not necessarily. Yeah,
Yeah, there are times where it comes through, um, but stealing the comp that NFL.com has. They said Chris Olave. I think that's a little generous.
It's a
um,
little generous. Yeah, I don't
it's a
know.
little generous, but I think there's other guys like when we get to like three, like again, wide receiver 3, 4, 5 in this class, the gap between them and like 6, 7, and 8 is much smaller than I think um, a lot of people want to. So like I would say McMillan is one is tier one. Burden and Igbuka and like maybe Golden I'd put in.
I'll put him in the same tier. Yeah,
I'd put him. Yeah,
maybe
Golden's probably
you can probably put
he's
Golden at
he's
the
at the
bottom
bottom
of
of that
that
tier.
tier, but yeah,
Yeah, but then you get into like the rest. Like so, PFF has Alec uh, Ayo Manor,
yeah,
Stanford, Jack Besh from TCU, Jaden Higgins, Iowa State, Xavier Restrepo from Miami, Trey Harris, Ole Miss, Jalen Noel from Iowa State, um, Jalen Royals from Utah State, and then Savion Williams. That's the next 8 guys, I think it was.
yeah. That's a lot
One,
of just kind of pick your poison in that group. I feel like it's the
yeah,
drop off.
and
It's very similar skill sets. I feel like, or talent level. I feel like with a lot of those guys you named. There's guys I like more than others, but
yeah. I will say this because I'm out on Restrepo. Just too much Sky Moore trauma for me. And then the other thing is like the Chiefs just don't really draft bigger receivers like Trey
no,
Harris. I really like Ayo Manor from Stanford. I think he has some potential and he tested really well. I think he's a really smart player. I just don't know if they'll go that route. Um, and again, and Jaden Higgins is another one who like I don't. First of all, I don't know if I trust Iowa State wide receivers.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I
I'll let someone
both
else
those guys
experiment with that.
like
Honestly, I'll let someone else experiment with that.
both those guys I'd want later on. Pardon me. Wow, what a Monday. Um, we won't get into Savion Williams because Garrett and I will. All right,
TCU wide receiver can do it.
TCU wide receivers. Here's the thing. I
He's
don't.
not even a real wide receiver. He's a
I
running back.
wouldn't call. I wouldn't utilize it. Like if you utilize him just as a wide receiver,
He's not even a good running back
like,
either. I mean, I don't know.
I think so. I think he's a really good player.
Maybe,
Um,
maybe
I
if he's still
again,
around,
I
maybe.
would say if he's my fourth round pick or even my last third round pick, I'm not mad. Right.
It's not the worst. It's not the worst. Yeah, I just
Um,
don't know. I also don't think that's something that Andy is super interested in as a player. That seems like
we
some
talked about
Jaguars type of stuff.
we talked about Jalen Royals.
Yeah,
Early on.
I don't mind Jalen Royals. Yeah, I don't mind.
Yeah. And then there is other players. Isaiah
Yeah,
Bond.
Isaiah Bond's not bad. I don't mind him.
He's well, he was supposed to be fast, but he's not that fast.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Um,
Texas got that 39-yard dash that they got running over there. Yeah, and
uh,
next year after all those guys is pretty.
yeah. And
Tez
that's where we get
Johnson, like,
like,
don't want him. Don't even want to look at Tez Johnson's. Don't even
yeah,
want to look in that
he's,
direction.
yeah. Ted Johnson can be
Torrey Horton out of Colorado State. He's kind of interesting.
he is an interesting guy.
Yeah,
If you remember the Colorado State Colorado game a couple years ago, it was Torrey Horton who like stole the show in that
yeah, he was
game.
balling out. Yeah,
Um, very, very competitive. Um,
yeah,
he is. What was his deal this last year? I mean, he's really, really wiry. Um, he didn't play. Injuries got him last year. He could be a guy that, again, if you told me 3 years from now he outperformed his draft position, I could see it. Um, Pat Bryant, I want to like, but he's
I haven't
limited.
looked at many of these other names that deep because
If we get into day three, I'll throw out Anton Wells
yeah,
from South Carolina.
Jimmy
Looked
Horn
really
Jr.
good there.
Jimmy Horn
Uh,
Jr. is in the draft. Forgot about
yeah,
that.
so is Moose Muhammad Jr.
Hmm.
Or the third. Um, there's a couple of guys, but I mean, it's tough once you get past again that those um, Kyron Lacey is an older prospect who's got a lot of legal issues, off the field stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's the main gist of the wide receivers. I think, yeah, it's another position where the Chiefs are pretty fine on. Um,
If they decide that, I'll say this: if they decide they need a receiver, they're going to have to get one early if they want somebody who's not.
yeah,
I think if you wait too long in that day two area, you're going to be in trouble. So
exactly. Yeah, that's about just once again how they value those receivers. If it was someone fell to 31, then I'm sure they would them that they liked. I'm sure they would do it, but it's not like a trade up or any type of situation. And then in the second round, it's leaving a little bit. I don't know. And we'll see. We'll see the wide receivers, how the Chiefs kind of go. Let's hit tight ends real quick. Let's because tight
yeah,
ends are kind of there's not a lot of names, but there's some names, and
oh yeah,
I think Chiefs fans. We got a lot of tight ends in house. Obviously, you got Travis Kelsey coming back for one more year. You got Noah Gray still.
mm-hmm.
Jared Wiley coming off a torn ACL. So it's not the most biggest position of need, but there's definitely an avenue that you're going to need more production out of a tight end in the next 2-3 years once Kelsey retires, and we'll see how Noah Gray keeps on progressing. But overall, seems like the consensus is Tyler Warren is a the best tight end in the class, and b
Mm-hmm.
maybe the best pass catcher in general in the class.
Yeah. Warren is special.
He's really good. Yeah,
Yeah, he's
really
special in a
dynamic.
different way. Like Brock Bowers was obviously really good as a
Right.
prospect, and you can't really compare the two because Warren is kind of an old school throwback, like do it all. He has room to grow, but um, his athletic profile is scary good. 6'6", 261. I don't know if that's his exact combine measurement, but um, yeah, and he did so much at Penn State. They used him all over the field. Him, and then you have Colson Loveland, who's the other big name.
Yeah.
Um, and I hate when people say it this way. They're like, "Oh, it's do you want Gronk or do you want Travis Kelsey?" Those are the two different molds. I'm like, do people forget how big Travis Kelsey is? Like,
Yeah. Big gap.
but Loveland, 6'5", 245, very much a receiver. I mean, both those guys are going to be long gone before the Chiefs
Yeah.
pick. If they're not, I want to see Brett Veach personally sprinting to the podium.
Yeah. If somebody
Because
somehow
that would
fell to that
be
20-ish range, I mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
Um,
I'd have to think about it. I'd have to think about it for sure.
yeah, behind those, you have three guys who are very similar. I think I like Terrence Ferguson a little bit more than the other two, although I think Arroyo. So Elijah Arroyo, Arroyo is from Miami. Taylor is from LSU. Ferguson is from Oregon. Um, Actually, as I kind of look through this, I kind of like Taylor a little bit more. I think
I like Mason Taylor. I like the idea of Mason Taylor.
I think he has more ups, just a smidge more upside. He's a little bit younger, a
Yeah.
little bit bigger. So I'd probably rank those Taylor, Arroyo, and then Ferguson. I know Ferguson had a real good combine. None of those guys are great run blockers. I would really like that's the other part. Is like, I just don't think any of them are like yeah. I'd really like to see them um, do a little bit better. I'm pulling up the run blocking grades on PFF now.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, but you're looking at a flex player who can come out. But yeah, Taylor kind of has the most appeal to me of those guys. Again,
Yeah,
that you're probably
Mason
looking at.
Taylor. Mason Taylor seems like the type of guy that Andy would like to have in his offense post Travis Kelsey. Like
Yeah,
not a guy who's gonna like explode and be another number one
mhm,
option for you like Travis was, but just good production. A good change of place player. I think after Travis Kelsey, there'll be a lot more 2 and 3 running or tight end sets, and you'll definitely see I think more of a split between Noah Gray and whoever else is around at the time still, but yeah, I like Taylor a lot as a potential option, but tight end is just not always the most intriguing position. It's not like the deepest position this year, so it'll
yeah,
be interesting to see. We didn't really suspect Jared Wiley would be on the Chiefs' radar last year, and it was. So
yeah. And he's again they've invested there some. I'd probably look at more of those like one of those day three guys. And one of the things I think that is important with the Chiefs and like um, and tight ends is they've shown that they understand that this is a position that takes patience, as they all do. One other name I'll throw out there, just because I think he's maybe more of a flex player, a fullback tight end, is Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green. A lot of people like him. if you're looking for that Kyle Juszczyk kind of role,
Hmm.
that would be a good fit for Kansas
Yeah,
City. Of course, you could have just gone out and got Kyle Juszczyk, but um, yeah, there's a couple other guys just thrown, but they're all going to be guys that you got to kind of be patient with, let them
yeah, a little bit
develop,
of projects.
work
Yeah,
on their bodies. Let them grow into the NFL. Not the guy from Utah who's almost 26. Um,
don't need to do
but
that.
we got tight ends again. One of those. If you want a good one, like if you want somebody solid, you probably have to go a little bit early.
Pretty early. Yeah, I don't know if that's in the Chiefs' cards this year. Okay, offensive tackle is
Mm-hmm.
another one I want to quickly brush over. We've talked about it a lot already because that seems to be one of the probably bigger positions that the Chiefs might target. A lot of people want the Chiefs to target in the first round. Um, yeah, there's a lot of names as far as tackle. I know who I'm kind of a fan of. I really liked, Ariante Ursery in like that end of round one, day two kind of area. Josh Simmons is another one who might be able to fall to that range.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, though, how do you kind of view the offensive tackles this year?
If you're looking for a day one starter, you got to get in position for um, Josh Simmons and hope and hope that he's healthy. I'm similar. I like Ursery. Uh, we talked a little bit before the show about some of the love that Josh Connerly is getting, and I didn't see it before the Senior Bowl. I don't see it now. I know
Yeah,
he kind of cooled off when there was the tape of Mike Green eating his lunch, but
he
I've
did eat
never
his
seen
lunch.
it. I think Simmons is like that. Like again, you got to watch hard. Um, I like Kelvin Banks. I do. I think he's probably a right tackle or a guard.
Yeah, probably.
Let
He's
me
good.
see.
He's a really good player. He's more of like a bigger kind of power, not as much. I mean, he's athletic. He's definitely athletic, but I don't know if he fits
Yeah,
exactly what the Chiefs like to do with offensive tackles and linemen in general. I mean, unless you're putting him at guard. Like I can see him playing guard for us for sure, but I don't know if he's.
yeah.
Yeah,
He and I will also add this just because like there's been I was reading the article or the little tweet today about the discrepancy in arm length reporting between the All Star games and the combine, and they came
yeah,
in a lot
yeah. It's like a whole
shorter.
half inch to a and plus.
Um, I think I would be okay taking Kellen Banks and letting him fail at guard or fail at tackle and then become a guard. But I think again that's a very similar trajectory to what you just did with Kingsley.
Yeah,
But I Kellen Banks has a much I think more stout like has a stouter athletic profile and he's a little bit younger. Um,
it'd be fun to
so getting
see
out
him
of,
as a guard and with the
yeah,
Chiefs. I mean, like across from Trey Smith, like those two as your guards. Oh my goodness. Yeah,
yeah,
I think that'd
R.I.P.
be pretty good.
Outside of the big names, I'm gonna talk about a couple of later guys that might be developmental pieces inside outside that would be worth
Yeah,
uh, grabbing. One of these guys again with the shorter arms, we'll see. I'm a big fan of Marcus Mbow from Purdue, developmental guy. He's good. He's tested really well athletically. Not super. I think if I'm right, he's newer to the game of football. Somebody you want to give some time to. Um, I think he ends up inside, but yeah, he'd be one to watch. Maybe on that late day two. The other one that we talked about a little bit before, Cameron Williams from Texas, the other Texas
yeah.
tackle. There was a point where they were having a conversation about, him staying in school, flipping over to the left side. Um, Young guy, he again, if you want him to come in and be your left tackle day one, that might be a tough ask. I think he is. You have to do some. There's. Um, he's one of the few tackles in this class that has 34 and a half inch arms. He's got long arms, big hands at 11 and 3/8.
Big fella.
Uh,
Period. I mean, he's
Big
big guy.
fella.
Yeah.
But I actually came in with at 317. I think he came into Texas really, really heavy. And if I remember right, um,
Oh, yeah, I
There
saw
were
him listed 335
about,
somewhere. Yeah.
yeah, about his like yeah, played at 369 pounds last year,
Jeez.
223. Yeah. So now you could see that one of two ways. You worry about his like um, his ability to stay disciplined, or you look at it and go, this is a guy who's 21 years old, 21 and a half years old. Um, he's got the size, and his body is developing and growing into the right position, into the right area. So that I if you miss out, I think Cameron Williams, if you're looking at a left tackle or just tackle in general, Cameron Williams is probably your best bet on day two because all these guys are going to be a little bit of a dice
Yeah,
roll.
definitely kind of
It's
a lot of
probably going to be
projects. Yeah.
yeah, um, for the Chiefs, but yeah. Um, one other gentleman I wanted to bring up, and I haven't. Just full disclosure, I've only seen I think a game and a half of his so far, where I've been watching him. But Logan Brown from KU, 1 year starter.
Okay.
I think he also was a guy who had the measurables that were good. I don't think he's a left tackle necessarily, from what I've heard and read, and just kind of the feel I get is that he's more like that developmental right tackle. So yeah, he's just 33 and 7/8 inch arms, good athletic testing. I think he is a guy who, again, um, good athletic pedigree. I really liked the way he moved. I liked the way that he latched on to guys. I thought his hands had good punch in them. But I just haven't seen enough to go much more than that. But again, if you're looking at that late day two, early day three, let's roll the dice on him. Outside of that, you're looking at a lot of developmental guys who are probably going to end up inside. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the tough part. A lot of guys who just don't have the length.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing with this tackle class, and it's tough to. This is the year that Chiefs kind of would prefer to have a tackle, I think, because it's just not the most ideal of prospects. I mean, there's some guys, but it's just how willing or how much are you willing to invest in it, as opposed to everything else you've already invested in tackle. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's definitely interesting, and I feel like we can also kind of compound this into the interior offensive line because we don't view interior offensive line as a need for Kansas City right now. We feel like we know the as a loud bike goes by. I don't know if you can hear that or not.
I heard
It's
that.
yeah. I feel like it's kind of already been penciled in that we have our interior three with Trey Smith, Creed, and then Kingsley as the left guard.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know. It's still definitely a big position of question. And if I look at a guy like Gray Zabel, for example, who I really like his tape, and I figure, if he's a
Mm-hmm.
guard for you long term, that's fine. If if you still have that position of need, but you can even try him at tackle and see how it works. I don't know. There's a couple guys in the interior that are very intriguing players to me. That is just, we don't have the most glaring need after Tooney's departure. It seems like Kingsley was probably going to be the answer, and with the investment that you made in him, you want him to be the answer there. But I don't know. Interior guys, anyone stick out to you?
Gosh, there's so many guys who could be moved on the inside. Um, This is not necessarily an interior guy that I would like draft as a guard, but just if I'm sitting there in day three, like if we're sitting there with one of those seventh round picks that we have just too many of, and I just kind of want to FAFO, like I'm gonna give North Carolina a call, Willie Lampkin.
Willie
This
Lamb?
kid blocks his backside off. Uh, Such a fun player to watch. 5'11", 290. This man is not. This man is. If you've ever, it's like watching an Oompa Loompa trying to block Godzilla sometimes. And I mean that with all respect, because Willie could probably pick me up and throw me over his head. The man is all heart, all dog. Um, Gosh, I don't know if they've done the all juice team, but if Willie Lampkin's not on it, I don't know. Man, he is to survive at North Carolina at a Division One school at offensive line at 5'11", 290. Like Willie Lampkin's probably one of the baddest dudes
That's
walking
great.
the earth right
Yeah,
now. Like,
that's some dog stuff right
um,
there. Yeah.
and he didn't just survive. He did well. He was a 90. I mean, yeah, he's done well all 3 years. 3 year starter. 3 year starter for North Carolina. Um, has some center
Good.
play, has some guard play, but you know what? Let's put this man in at fullback. Let's just see what happens. Let's use them. Let's use him as that interior. You know, he can be the backup swing. You know, interior offensive
Interior
lineman.
offensive
But if
lineman
I
and
don't
one
get to see
fullback.
Willie Lampkin
Not a bad
fullback,
idea.
I'm gonna be mad. I'm gonna be
Yeah,
mad.
that's a good. I like that. I like that a lot. Um,
Yeah.
interior offensive line. Yeah, there's nothing. No one else really stands out to me a lot.
If
I haven't delved into many of it because I don't. We have our interior offensive line. Seems like so.
yeah. Well, and if Lampkin was an inch or two taller,
Oh
we'd
yeah.
be
Well,
talking about him as, oh, maybe he's a little bit light, but you just don't see 5'11". I
yeah,
mean,
that's pretty
here's
rare. I mean, that's yeah.
six
It
five,
probably become a center with that, but
yeah.
I mean, hey,
He is so much fun to watch. If you have time, go watch Willie Lampkin. Do yourself a favor. Go watch old Willie. Um, just yeah, I one of my favorite players in the draft. I have no idea what to do with him, but one of my favorite players in the draft. Just in fact, I told you I was going to try not to. I'm putting on Willie Lampkin's highlights while we finish this episode. We're doing it. Yeah. Continue.
okay. So that basically covers the offense. We're at 46 minutes, Tom. So I don't know if you want to go to defense on this episode, if you want to keep on sending it, or if we
Mm-hmm.
want to call it on
Let's,
offense today. I'm down to keep sending it if you are. I mean, we can
well,
go.
let's keep sending it. Let's. You
All
know
right,
what? We're here.
let's keep
We're
sending
here.
it.
Let's do
We're
it.
here. Let's do it. Let's transition over to the
I've got the
defensive
Willie
side of the
Lampkin
ball.
highlights on.
Yeah, Tom's locked in and engaged. Okay, so defensive line. I think we can answer this kind of as a whole for the Chiefs. Obviously, edge rusher and interior defensive line, defensive tackle are two positions of question. I think a lot of Chiefs fans, myself included, would really like to see the addition of another great interior defensive lineman next to Chris Jones.
Mhm.
I believe in our mock draft that we did in our last episode, we did take a defensive tackle with our first round pick. Um, how do you view defensive line in this year's draft? And what do you kind of look at it from the Chiefs' perspective of who they might be interested in?
Yeah. So two Michigan guys at the top: Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant. I think Graham is going to be a top 20 pick, probably top 15. There's some, discussions about body type, all that stuff, shorter arms. Good football player. There's conversations this time last year or whatever, shortly after the draft last year, Graham being the number one overall pick. Um, so he's had a really elite collegiate career. Graham's going to be good.
Yeah,
Um,
he's a game wrecker. He is definitely a game wrecker.
his running mate, Kenneth Grant, more of your traditional like one tech, zero tech, big strong kid,
Yeah,
339. They're both pretty big kids, 320 and 339. But
yeah,
um, Grant is a little bit more, yeah, he's more of your traditional nose. He could be there. He would be an interesting one. He scares me a little bit just because nose tackles are so hard to project, and I think the last time we saw a guy, um, Mozzie Smith.
I was just thinking of Mozzie Smith. Yeah,
Really liked him, and that didn't kind of dodge that bullet. So
yeah. Well, he might be it might be a character thing, or also the Cowboys also try to convert him to like a whole different position as soon as they drafted him. So I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely
yeah,
tough. The Chiefs haven't
uh,
had a. I mean, we've had the same nose tackle for the past
mm,
7 years in Derek Nottie, so it's kind of it'd be interesting to see where they go post
yeah.
Derek Nottie because there's no
Well,
more Derek
you know,
Nottie.
they brought back some guys. I think defensive tackle is one of their bigger needs. Um, some people, Walter Nolan, I'm on the fence about. I think he'll be gone by then, which helps me a
Might
little
be,
bit.
yeah.
I I don't see it the way other people. Like, I just don't see it the same way. I guess we talked about Derek Harmon the last episode. Love Derek Harmon. Would love that pick.
I like Derek Carmen a lot. Yeah.
I don't want Darius Alexander. It's an old player to bring in.
No.
Again, to go back to the top of the show, this is one of those things. TJ Sanders, limited, seems more like more of an attacking defensive tackle. I don't think you could put him, he'd be more situational his first couple years, very much pass rush oriented. I want to talk about Ohio State's defensive tackle who I really liked last year, but then he went back. Tyleek Williams,
Yeah,
really athletic,
he is really
really
athletic.
could like he's one of those guys that you're just like we've just been waiting for him to put it all together forever, and he still hasn't. But could be a guy who I think has a high floor. I don't know if 31 that might be a little bit rich, but if they make a little move down, maybe. Um, let's talk about Omar Norman Lott, who I know we talked about briefly last episode with Randy. Um, I've gone back and watched him a little bit more since then. I really do like him. I think he's a very energetic player. Kind of a weird size, but like just really good pass rusher. Really brings like just like a spark plug in the middle. Very very Turk Wharton esque in that sense. Although I think he's a
Like
little bit
that.
bigger than Turk
Yeah, like
was.
that.
So Shamar Turner, he's kind of a tweener. We'll pass on him because we can talk about him as an edge maybe, but
Yeah, he's kind
um,
of meaner. Yeah.
I do like Alfred Collins from Texas. I think again has some experience. Should be could develop into a rotational starter. Joshua Farmer was a darling at the combine. Tackle from Florida State. Athletic. I think his frame's a little slimmer than what I want. um, but or at times it looks a little bit slimmer. Like he just looks a little bit light. Sometimes it can get tossed out of position. Um, I gotta check another. Hey, let's have fun on day 3 if he's there. Ole Miss defensive tackle JJ Hughes. I have no idea how to say that. All I know is they used him as fullback more than they should have.
You like
um,
these versatile fullbacks.
I like. Listen, I miss the days of Hungry Pig.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, hungry pig, right?
he's an older prospect. Again, I would take him on day 3. That
Yeah.
fifth, probably a 6th or 7th round pick, honestly. But um, I think I think he has the athleticism and the most of all the spark, the motor to be um, oh gosh, a rotational guy. Like
Rotational
can
one. Yeah.
really bring it. Really is um, like kind of is the again to use players that we know. Think like personality wise, like a little bit kind of Colin Saunders, kind of level of not that anybody could ever, you know,
Call him the goat. Yeah.
touch Colin, but yeah, like that type of player where it's like, all right, he's gonna come in, he's gonna make plays, everyone's gonna celebrate, he's gonna have
Yeah.
top tier
It'll be a fun
celebration.
time.
But yeah, um, that is that's it. I mean, there's a lot of other names. I know we're trying
There's a lot of names, yeah.
to.
Interior defensive line. It's interesting to me from the Chiefs' perspective for a couple things. And I saw someone mention this on Twitter today. How Steve Spagnuolo has really never had like or prioritized having a really talented like interior defensive lineman. Like he
Mhm.
inherited Chris Jones and that worked out great. But every time else, he's not really like ever made defensive tackle like a premier position on his offensive line. Obviously, we've seen him employ all the different NASCAR packages, and he would have all these incredibly talented kind of tweener guys like OCU Manura and stuff like that. But
Justin Tuck was a big one.
Justin Tuck, yeah. So it's like guys who can play inside and out, but like true defensive tackle types, he hasn't necessarily prioritized besides having Chris Jones. And the other thing I think about when you talk about defensive tackle from the Chiefs perspective is I feel like they've tried very hard to find a nose tackle the past few years. Like they
Mm-hmm.
made the trade for Neil Farrell Jr. And that didn't really work out super well. They signed like Marlon Tui Pulatu, who was like
Mm-hmm.
inactive this whole year. There's been a couple other defensive tackles that I mean, they
Yeah.
haven't invested a lot, but they've thrown a couple late round trade picks or whatnot, or just late round flyers, and just seems like they haven't hit on a guy. But it seems like to me is that they really want to find a guy
Mm-hmm.
who is bigger, who is a little bit in that nose tackle category. And that's why they've had
Yeah.
to kind of keep going back to Derek Nottie because it seems like they've swung and missed a couple times, and so they just resort back to Nottie. So it'd be interesting to see how they approach that, how big of a priority is now that they don't have that safety blanket of Derek Nottie. And a couple of those other guys in the defensive
Mhm.
tackle.
That's where I think a guy like Tyleek Williams or even Alfred Collins to a lesser extent make a little bit more sense than some of the other
Yeah,
guys we've talked about because they're those bigger hold the point of attack. Like the thing is that's going to free up even like Kendrick Grant if you were there. That's going to free up Nick Bolton to do his
especially
thing.
get that big
But
investment in Nick Bolton. You want
yeah,
someone to be able to
yep,
fill the
give
space in
him some
front of
room
him.
to run,
Yeah. So
keep him
something to think
clean.
about. Something to think about with the interior defenders, edge rushers. A lot of talent this year, but it's we've invested a lot. The Chiefs have in edge the past few years. Um, I don't know if it's a position that you can necessarily slot someone in super early on. With
Mm-hmm.
they have Charles Omenihu still. You have Mike Dana still. You have George Karlaftis and Felix Anaduke Uzama and there's a lot of names. Not like you can't add another guy on day 2 or 3, but it'll be interesting to see. There's a lot of talented edge rushers though. I think in this
Yeah.
draft, in my opinion,
So
a lot of
kind
guys
of
I'd be
parsing
intrigued by.
through. Yeah, I'll skip through a bunch of the names that just aren't going to be fits. So Mike Green,
Yeah,
James Pierce, Ezaraku, all too light, all too short.
yeah.
Pierce, yeah, Pierce is 243. We're not doing that.
He
I will
did
tell
6'5",
you,
yeah, low.
my dream scenario is one of Mike Williams or Shamar Stewart being there. Shamar Stewart blew up the combine. He's going to fly up the board.
He's probably
Mikel
gonna be
Williams is a guy who's athletic, who's an athletic freak. He's going to be, you know, be up there. So we're probably not going to get those guys. But even then, like, so that's the top 6 guys. Um, we still have Nick Scorchin, Landon Jackson. I'm skipping over guys who are kind of lighter than what we look at. Jared Ivey, Kyle Kennard. I know we've been to visit with him.
Jared Ivey
Uh,
did not test very good.
he did not, no, but he's not going to be a tester. But um, so Nick Scourton, Landon Jackson, that level. I do like, Nick Scourton didn't do a lot of testing, but his size fits. I think we talked about him again as the kind of that George Karlaftis clone.
Yeah,
Landon Jackson, very similar, very
yeah,
strong. I love Landon Jackson's story. I would root hard for that. Yeah, JT Toole, Maloau. There's a couple other guys just going down the list. I think you know they they might have to get a little bit creative, but there's guys. Quindarius Robinson is one. He's much lighter, um, but as a developmental guy from Alabama, very twitchy. Probably a rotational guy, but if you're just looking for a pass rush, um, Antoine Powell Ryland had a really good combine. Virginia Tech doesn't necessarily meet the size parameters perfectly, but I think could be interesting. There's some juice down the board, but that's where again, if you're looking at the end of that first round, that makes some sense for the Chiefs. So
yeah. Just with the prospects that are available, I don't know if it's going to be the biggest priority in the first round or two. I mean, you can always use more edge rushers, but I just don't know if there'll be a good sweet spot of a guy that really fits what the Chiefs like to do in a good range for him.
let's do this. Let's skip over linebackers.
Yeah, that's fair.
The only caveat I would say is I would still take Jihad Campbell in the first round if he were there. But
You're a big Jihad Campbell fan. I don't know.
um,
I don't know if I would do that. I don't know if I would do that personally. Yeah, I don't mind him, but I just don't know. I just don't know if I'm taking him in the first round.
hmm,
I mean,
I
that's
think
more of a
he's in,
general. I don't know if the Chiefs are gonna. I wouldn't want the Chiefs to take him. If I were a GM for a random team, I would take him in the first round.
yeah.
I just don't love the idea unless there's literally just no one else good on the board, which I doubt. But I don't. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see
Let's
about him.
let's hit
Um,
some highlights for corners and safeties, and then let's.
and then
We're
yeah,
like
because
we're gonna do a short episode, and here we are an
short
hour into
episode. Yeah, still nailing an hour. Yeah, because corner and safety. I feel like safety it might be more of a need than corner. Seems like
Mm-hmm.
corner, at least for this year, is kind of secured. I mean, we talked about it in previous episodes how there's going to be a lot of guys from that 2022 draft class who are going to have contracts coming up next year. Trent McDuffie, Joan Watson, Joshua Williams will all be needing new contracts next year. I'm guessing you keep one, maybe two of those guys, not all three. So you signed Christian Fulton to a 2-year deal, so that's at least have 2 years of him, but definitely could add another corner, especially if a really talented one falls to you.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously the corner of the draft is Travis Hunter, but Outside of him, there's some interesting options. A lot of length. I think this is a really good. As like kind of unfortunate because it feels like this would be a really good draft for corners for the Chiefs, just because there's a lot of like really lengthy, rangy guys who are
Yep.
in that kind of mold a little bit. I mean, I don't know.
Siobhan
I mean,
Ravel, Darian Porter,
yeah, those are
Raya
those are
Thomas.
two guys. Yeah,
As
Isaac
Raya
Reed
Thomas,
Thomas. Yeah,
I would take in the first round, and that might be a hot take, but
wow.
little slender, but he's young. I really like Siobhan Ravel as well. So I would probably rank him Thomas, Ravel, Porter in that order. All three of those guys, so 6'2", 6'4", 6'3", in that, well, 6'4", 6'2", 6'3", in that category. Those are the PFF instruments. I don't think those are exact
Yeah.
combine stuff, but yeah, those are the guys I would look at if they go that way early on. But it's probably going to be a
If somehow
developmental guy.
Will Johnson fell to a reasonable range, I would be intrigued by Will Johnson.
Yeah, I would
I don't,
be.
I
I
don't know if
would
he's
be.
going to fall to a reasonable range, but that would be a similar
Yeah,
Trent McDuffie type situation where you have to jump up a little bit to achieve him. But I wouldn't mind seeing him and Trent dominate
yeah.
the next few years
Well,
together. But
yep. And it's
um,
just like pass rushers can never have too many
can
cover
never have
guys.
too many. Yeah, and then safety is really a very interesting spot because you lose Justin Reed, you're slotted basically to start Jaden Hicks probably as your guy, but Brian Cook coming up on a contract soon. There's some very intriguing safeties that could definitely do a lot of things that Spags would love. We talked about Nick Amanware, who had a really good draft. Xavier Watts is a really talented guy that I know Kyle would love. Notre Dame guy. Malachi Starks is super talented. I mean, Georgia, you can't go wrong with Georgia defenders. It seems like
I
he's
will
probably
say
gonna get
Malachi
picked by the
Starks
Eagles.
had me drooling, and then this last year was weird, and then he didn't test very well. I don't
Yeah,
know what's up with that, but
I'd
like
still bet on it. I don't know. Yeah,
his 2023 season, lights out.
yeah. Some good options. Kevin
Kevin
Winston
Winston
Jr.
Jr. Penn
Yeah,
State. Yep, that's my guy. Injured last year. Um, Go back and watch his 2023 tape. I think if he plays at that same level, we're talking about him as probably safety one in this class. I don't know how he tested, and he's coming off an ACL tear, but he was so good for Penn State. Like just as like that deep, rangy guy. Just just yeah. I don't even think he ran. I he could be a steal on day two for a team.
yeah. I think you talk about safety, it's anything in day two. I wouldn't be super mad about if it's one of those top guys. I can see them using that as a good excuse to take one of those guys off the board there. But it's not like the super deep cut. I don't know if there's anyone else behind them that I'd necessarily. I mean, there's a couple developmental guys that I think you should definitely
Yeah.
take a look at on day three,
Hmm.
just because I think the overall depth of safety is going to be questioned a little bit in the coming years. So I would
Yeah.
definitely draft a safety somewhere
Yeah.
in this draft for sure.
Yeah. And then just to round it out, I think with the punters, Kai Kroger from South Carolina is an intriguing guy with lots of experience.
Yeah,
I think if you're looking for, feel like your punters will be a little more hefty. James Burnip from Alabama.
six
Who's,
six two 36. Jesus,
yeah, he's a beefy punter.
he's a brick shit house. Oh my
But
goodness.
yeah, I personally am a big fan of Oklahoma's Luke Elzinga. I think he's got a really solid leg on him. And I'm kidding. I haven't watched any punters this year. Well, that's the end of me rambling about football players.
I'm not gonna. I mean, hey, I'm not gonna say anything, but I wouldn't mind a punter. I'm just telling you that. We've all known my
I bet you Willie Lampkin can punt.
yeah. Who knows? I mean, we do need a Justin Reed backup kicker replacement too, so we got to think about that. We have to think about a guy who has the versatility to go out there and kick some footballs as well. So I don't know. There's a kicker named Ryan Fitzgerald. That's interesting. Yeah. Other than that, I think that's about it. I think that's kind of covered a lot of our positional rankings at the moment. There's still a whole month before the draft still that we've got time to evaluate some guys, and we might get a little bit clearer picture after some more pro days and a couple other just developments. We'll see if the Chiefs make any other developments in kind of the second wave of free agency that's been going on recently. But outside of that, yeah, that's kind of our main bread and butter. We got it around the hour mark. That wasn't too bad of an episode for us.
Yeah.
Um, I think we did good. I think we did good. We appreciate you all for tuning in tonight and joining us. We are going to be back later this week, hopefully on Friday. Hopefully, we're going to be here for a live episode on Friday. Get some guys in here and maybe we'll do another mock draft or something too on Friday because I like doing mock drafts. Mock drafts are a fun time and it's a good way to get the bones moving, the juices flowing, and getting some good discussions. And what to maybe float the ideas of some trades and stuff. There's a lot of talk about draft day trades and certain maybe former Chiefs that are potentially on the trade market and sending out cryptic tweets. This is the time of year for cryptic tweet season, so we'll see.
Trade
Anything
up,
anything is
trade
possible.
off,
Yeah,
be
trade up or
aggressive, get good players.
yeah, or I mean, we saw a couple years ago a surprise Orlando Brown Jr. trade, like a week before the draft. So anything can happen. Anything can happen. We appreciate you all for rocking with us once again on this episode. Be sure to follow us at Kingdom Says Pod on Facebook, Twitter, and X. And you can find us over on Blue Sky as well. We post a little bit of stuff on there. Yeah, find us over on YouTube. Kingdom Says Podcast over on YouTube. Got a lot of great content. You can always, that's like a
We'll
good
get
way
that
to
mic
keep.
set up too eventually.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get that working up pretty good. But YouTube, great way to connect with us on those live streams when we do them every live. You can go into the YouTube chat and comment on there and have some discussions with us while we're live, which is always a great time. And yeah, wherever else you get podcasts at, Spotify, Apple Music, we'll be there. We'll be there waiting for you. And we're excited for the rest of draft season to commence and then post draft season as well. We have a lot of fun plans for post draft as well. So um, yeah, that's it. That's it. Any last words from you, Tom, before we get out of here for the people?
That's it. Thanks for
That's
hanging
it.
out with us. We're excited. Again, this is my favorite time of the year. We're gonna get into a lot of stuff, but um, yeah, I promise. I feel like I've been lacking on some sleepers and some guys I've been really like have some conviction about. I'm gonna bring some guys on Friday that you
Yeah,
hopefully haven't heard of.
we
We're gonna
gotta
get
dive
into it.
into the depths. We gotta dive into the
We're
depths.
gonna we're gonna get into it. I'm gonna consult with Scout. We're gonna make our picks. It's gonna be good.
There you go. Good teaser. All right then. Take it easy, y'all. We'll see you on the next episode